Hi, and welcome back to the Working Class History podcast. As you may know, we don't get any sort of funding from any wealthy benefactors, corporations, governments, or political parties. Our work is funded by you, our listeners and readers, on Patreon. In return, our supporters on Patreon get access to exclusive content and benefits, like ad-free episodes, bonus podcast episodes, and a couple of exclusive discussion podcast series, Fireside Chats, and Radical Reads. So here is a little preview of our latest episode for our patrons. You can join us, help support our work, and listen to the whole thing today at patreon.com/workingclasshistory. Link in the show notes.
As we come marching, marching in the beauty of the day. A million darkened kitchens, 1,000 mill lofts grey are brightened by the beauty sun discloses. And the people here are singing bread and roses, bread and roses.
Hello to all of our fantastic Patreon supporters. Our Fireside Chat for you this month is something a little bit different. Matt and I got on a call to have a chat about my experiences organising at work in the public sector a few months ago. But earlier the day that we spoke, New York and federal authorities in the US arranged a ridiculous perp walk for Luigi Mangione, who'd been arrested in connection with the assassination of a healthcare CEO. And basically that was all we wanted to talk about, so we accidentally ended up with a bunch of tape about Luigi. A few months on, Mangione is now facing federal death penalty charges, and his first federal court appearance is scheduled for today, the 19th of March. So we thought we would get a fire going and have an updated discussion on developments in the case which have taken place since we first spoke. So this chat consists of two separate discussions, the first from our chat in December last year, and the second from a couple of weeks ago. Hope you enjoy the episode. And what do you think about the case? Let us know in the comments.
I mean, I think the one thing that's kind of blown me away about this is because obviously Mangione, like looking at the stuff he wrote online and things like that, and the stuff he posted on social media, it's got a lot of his views are kind of typical manosphere, sort of right-wingish manosphere type views. But in other stuff he's written, you can see that is critical of US corporations burning the planet and things like that. So it's I think quite typical of a lot of people in the US with kind of, I don't know if you'd call them radical centrists or kind of like extremist centrists or something, where they hold like a real mixture of, or just some sort of general populism where they've got a mixture of right and left ideas but support violence.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's what I find funny about it more than, because I think like really, there's basically like, apart from the tiny minority of people like us, whether they're left wing or right wing, who like give so much of a shit about politics, I think most people, hold some weird combination of both, left and right wing ideas, and we'll hold them together. But the funny thing is that like, whatever the combination of ideas that people are holding in their heads, like about, I don't know, gender or about whatever, the welfare state, or whatever kind of combination they have, it seems like in America the one thing that they're united by is that we should shoot healthcare CEOs. And that was what I think is so like, and also it's so funny just seeing the media, like even in the UK, really everyone going into overdrive just to really underline like, oh, this thing that happened was bad. You know what I mean? Like so many people are reacting in a positive way about this terrible thing that happened, and you're like, usually I feel like there's not that kind of that necessity to like, that terrorist attack, that terrible terrorist attack, there's something like that. You just sort of like, okay, we know it's terrible, so you don't have to say it. So you just kind of, it's just left there. But then because so many people are supportive of this, like the media has taken it upon themselves, that it's like, we really have to underline this was a bad thing, and everyone is supposed to feel like negatively about this, and just everyone's, I don't know how it is in the US, but from here it seems like everyone in the US is either kind of like, that guy had it coming, or like, meh, who cares really.
And
But,
that's what's so crazy to see. Like, the reaction, I mean, the fact that when United Healthcare posted to their Facebook page about, oh, just a personal tragic note about how sad it was that their person died, and it literally got 50,000 laughing face reacts
Right.
and only a couple of thousand sad face reacts. So then they turned off the ability to react to it. But then what that meant was all you could see was the main reaction and the number. So then it made it look like there were 125,000 laughing faces and nothing else. And like the fact that the usual suspects, lefty kind of influencers and things making jokes about it. But the thing that I find the craziest is like on TikTok, just so many average random TikTok influencers who just have a couple of million followers. So they're people that don't make political content for the most part. They make songs or they just chat about their lives or whatever, are just doing songs about how great Luigi Mangione is.
There was something at like some Disney Channel thing or some Disney adults gig or something like that, and like they played some song, I forget what it was, but and they were just playing kind of like a slideshow of like Luigi Mangione's face just behind them, I mean, and just like
And the whole crowd was cheering.
yeah,
And then they showed his mugshot at the end, and the whole crowd just went, what? Like, it really, I don't know if it's like a generational thing. I think it's partly generational, but I mean, I've seen plenty of like older people say stuff. And in comment section, I mean, comment sections on social media are quite like self-selecting because they're algorithmically like chosen and stuff. But it is very surprising to see that so many people are talking about class as a result of it. Like I've seen so many just like random apolitical people on social media talk about, oh, like class consciousness now, that
mm,
like this sort of thing, regardless of political views, or has given quite a few people in the US a feeling of class consciousness that, politically or whatever might have disagreements, but it's like, oh, this is clearly a class issue, that this was a wealthy capitalist whose job is kind of helping to kill working class people, and it's like against the rest of us. It's
yeah,
quite
yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, no, it is incredible to see. Like, what's incredible is that like it underlines this kind of latent class tension that exists, and maybe like it comes out in like weird ways, elsewhere. You know what I mean? Maybe like in, sometimes it comes out as like anti-immigrant sentiment, or like it comes out as, yeah, maybe occasionally it sort of crystallizes in the form of strikes and things like that. But yeah, this, for it to come out like this in this way that also like feels like actually, oh, there's quite a large constituency in this country for like offing members of the ruling class. You know what I mean? Which is quite funny. And like I'm not sure that like Bernie could run on that. I'm not sure you could like fit that into a kind of a social democratic, worldview.
Bernie Mangione 2028.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, exactly. Um, but it is there, and I think it is something that always has to be sort of borne in mind. Especially when people kind of criticize things like abolitionist politics, or if people speak in favor of like law and order, like working class people. They love law and order politics and things like that. And I'm sure that's, if you do focus groups, that's what you would find out. You do focus groups, and I'm sure you would find that out. But I don't think that if you'd have done a focus group 2-3 weeks ago and asked, are you in favor of, shooting healthcare CEOs in the street, I'm sure very few people would have said, yeah, definitely, actually. But then once it happens, it's like, yeah.
Well, I think like true sort of fans of the pod will probably be aware of the Martin Glaberman quote about action preceding consciousness,
Mm.
which I think has come up before, but that was in respect to workers in the US towards the end of World War II voting to support the no strike pledge, but then taking wildcat strikes all the time.
Yeah, and I think it's a really like the way he phrases that is really good, because he's like saying like, which one of the two actions is more significant? Is it the vote to give away your right to strike during the war? Is that more reflective of the mood of workers? Or is the fact that the majority of auto workers went on wildcat strike at some point during that wartime strike wave period? And it's so, yeah, that thing of what do you put down on a piece of paper as your stated position, and then what do your actions say your stated position is, and how that kind of contradicts.
On like the class nature of it, Fox News commentators, people were kind of making jokes about, so a content note for brief mention of sexual violence, but were making classic kind of right-wing jokes about saying, oh, Luigi Mangione was going to be subjected to sexual violence in prison, and then being gleeful about that. And then seeing what actually happened with him in prison with journalists outside, where his fellow detainees were yelling out the windows to journalists saying that his conditions were terrible and that they should free Luigi.
And shouting free Luigi, yeah.
Again, they're just not, like Fox News, just kind of not understanding basic ideas about the sense of class solidarity that a lot of people still have, on an innate level, thinking that that people in prison would have the same view of someone who killed a CEO as a multimillionaire Fox News presenter.
Yeah. I mean, there's something a bit disgusting anyway about, like, a certain amount of joy that this kind of millionaire, like, right-wing TV presenter gets from, like, the idea of someone going into a bit like an institution that kind of encourages and, sort of incubates, these kinds of conditions as well. You know what I mean? It's like, it's something that they seem to revel in as well. There was something. I mean, there was something sort of like multiply kind of disgusting about that comment, and then for it to just be proved immediately wrong anyway. You know what I mean? Which is like, because the whole point is that, like, his view of the people in prison are that they're all kind of basically animals anyway, and they behave like animals because that's what they are. And you're throwing this guy into, this animal environment,
which is run by the state.
Yeah, exactly. And actually the people in there aren't nearly, what he accuses them of being. But yeah, anyway, it is quite jokes. It's mostly quite funny because at the same time that there's Luigi Mangione, there's also that guy, was it Daniel Penny, who, like, the right obviously want him to be like the superhero, you know what I mean? Like the white knight going out on the New York metro, to take down swarthy villains.
That brings us to the end of this episode preview. Hope you enjoyed it. To listen to the full thing and help support our work researching and promoting people's history, join us today on Patreon at patreon.com/workingclasshistory. That's patreon.com/workingclasshistory. Link in the show notes. Catch you next time.